What if they had like the Chad Kroeger version? Like, I want to fly high so I can reach the highest of all them heavens. Now it sounds like a Creed song.
Well, no, and then I get to if it was Chad Kroeger, then you have the other one like, I'm sorry I was flying high last night. I did some things and got in a fight.
I crashed down.
People don't know who they were. Some were guys and some might have been girls. I don't know. I'm a little bad boy. A bad man. Flying high with my pants down. My dick in the wind.
I'm sorry I got shot down out of the sky when fighting a giant red Republican robot man.
But I said, hey, fuck you, I'm a Canadian.
This is Tails as Chad Kroeger. So anybody who don't know, that's the Tails theme song right there. Okay, so here's
apparently in Sonic Adventure 3, Tails has a new musician. Chad Kroger's being exclusive for Tails now.
What about
the rest of Nickelback? Fuck Nickelback. We just want Chad Kroeger. We all know why we're here. We're not here for the band.
It's kind of like
to throw their T-shirts on and say, "Hey, look at me! I'm in a band. I got a T-shirt on." Does the T-shirt have anything on it? No, but I might have to go wash dishes tomorrow. Who knows? This Nickelback train might just end. We're Canadian. We don't like to just think about today. We think about tomorrow.
You think one of them would just throw on a fucking flannel or something like that? No, it was like in the Spider-Man soundtrack when I was like, oh, Nickelback. This is back when Nickelback first came out. Silver Side Up. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say it's the greatest album in the world, but in middle school, I'm like, oh, this band's kind of cool. But then after a couple albums after, it just started way too much. Like your pants around your feet, that shit. But I remember when Spider-Man the first one came out, they had the Nickelback for the song.
Will touch you, and a hero might grab you in the dark.
and then they had the guy from Saliva. Oh, the hero!
He's like, back off my microphone, little bitch.
You just push him away. Yeah, it was just like, do we get Nickelback? No, we just got one guy from Nickelback and one guy from Saliva doing backup.
Oh, wait, we got the singer from Nickelback? Well, no, we got Nickelback.
Might as well. I always refer to it's a Nickelback song from Spider-Man. I always refer to it as that for a long time.
Yeah, well, it's not putting the other guys down. We all know that they're doing a good job playing their instruments and stuff like that. But, whenever you look at pictures of Nickelback, it's just like, you got Chad Kroeger. At least he's got a little bit of scruff going, maybe a little bit of long hair. He might throw a flannel on. And just the rest of the guys, though, it's just, they look like they work this is a weekend gig. It could end at maybe they just keep doing hey, man, it might... I don't know, it might end anytime soon. You gotta think about the future now, and it still has not clicked in them that you guys.
Oh, Jake, I'm on a podcast right now, Jake.
It's
all good.
Jake, God damn it! It must just sound like at first that you just go crazy for a second because nobody can hear me; they just hear you going off singing.
Jake, you're fucking it up again. I'm sorry, Jake. I didn't mean that. All right, Jake says he's sorry.
Jake, you're being just like Dad, fucking walking in on my conversations.
No, it's literally inch-thick walls, so whenever my roommate has company, it's got to sound like just the fucking, what the fuck is going on next door?
Who's your retard roommate who just sits there and yells at the top of his lungs about Dick and Batman?
Hey, wasn't it weird the Thing had no dick in Fantastic Four?
I mean, come on.
That shit. Just ignore that. Just ignore that.
Just so we don't get that Nerdist thing. Welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan. I figured you were probably recording this whole time, so I'm just going to jump in.
Let's make sure we were, because that stuff was pretty funny. Okay, good, we are. Thank Christ. Well, thank Thor. Thank Buddha. Thank... We're multi-diversal here, even though we stopped at 3.
Bat God.
Bat God.
But no,
speaking of that, kind of like that, remind me of Pearl Jam. I don't know how this all jumps together, because Nickelback always felt like, especially when you listen to that first album, they really wished they were Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. But I watched Out of the Furnace again, and I don't think I've seen that movie since the theaters when we saw it. And that movie, just even on a second time watching it, that is just such a fucking good movie. And it's a movie that gets no credit. Nobody's fucking seen that movie. I don't think I've ever really met anybody who's seen it.
I think it's just because it's so like sad and so dark, and I don't know, because it was a very slow movie. I'm not gonna lie, that movie. I mean, I loved that movie when I saw it, but it had a real like they advertised it as his brother's gone missing. He's gonna go hunt for him. That doesn't really happen till like halfway point of the movie. It's really about a guy's life just spiraling downhill, and then once his brother goes missing, that's just the last straw. So it's really we said this when we saw it. It's really a slow burn, kind of like Deer Hunter. It really reminded me a lot of Deer Hunter.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot like that. And it's weird. There's like some of these movies that like it's like and like they are kind of like these depressing stories, but I don't know what it is. It does remind me of a movie that I could actually watch that movie just over multiple times, and it's like I would just enjoy it every single time because sometimes there's those dramas where like they're really good, but you kind of are done watching and go, that movie was great, but I don't know if I could watch it a bunch of times. This one, it's just like even though it's just this guy's like life and just like he's trying to do the best, just everything goes downhill. I mean, it's just that one where it's like, at first, what's the first downhill stroke in that one? Well, his brother's he sees his brother like gambling and whatnot, and then he goes to he's supposed to meet up his brother to have a beer. Half an hour or so goes by, and he decides he's not showing up, so he just takes off. Accidentally gets in a car crash from a stupid lady backing out of a driveway, and kills the lady and his son. So he gets sent to jail because he was drunk, and he killed these people. Who knows how long that is? Something. But in that period, his father dies while he's in jail, so he never got to see him again after that day. And all this stuff just kind of goes down. And it sounds like one of those ones where it seems like almost like a hard sell. Like when you start explaining this to somebody, like, why the fuck would I want to watch? That just sounds sad and depressing. But it's when a story's so good. It's like The Wrestler. The Wrestler's another one of those ones. Like I've seen that movie like 8 times, and people always go like, they're like, man, that was a good movie, but how the hell did you watch it that many times? It's like, I don't know. The story really intrigues me. I really like it. And even though like at the end he fucking dies, it's almost like one of those deaths where it's like he died in the one place that always loved him, and it's almost like this sort of, I don't know, like almost like, because there's some of those endings in movies where they're really depressing. You go, wow, oh man, I don't feel good now. In The Wrestler, you almost feel sort of relieved, and even I'll say this. I was gonna say, and Out of the Furnace, you almost feel slightly relieved too, because even though all this shit goes down, the guy that killed his brother, he kills him, and it's kind of like at least there's that one thing. It's been, release me.
How they have that song is basically the theme for that. Well, I'm gonna speak on like Wrestler for a second, but like that one right there. That actually, I kind of know exactly what you mean. It makes sense. It's the same ending, basically, because they're originally, we said this before on the podcast, they're part of the same movie, I believe, or originally part of the same script, possibly, but or something like to that effect. But like Black Swan, it's kind of the same thing. Kind of like, I'm not so good at life, but I'm really fucking good at this one thing, and I'm going to die doing this one thing I'm really good at. And and it makes sense because it's the same writer, same director, so that makes why that carries on over. It's kind of like the same type of ending. It's like it's very different, like even though those are those two are the same director. Another thing that has that same feeling where it's sad, but you're kind of relieved and kind of happy for him. Cowboy Bebop, the way it ends.
The TV show.
Yeah, the show.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. Like sometimes it's like it's an ending that like. It almost like when you explain it, it sounds depressing, but when you watch it, it's like, no, it makes sense. It's like that's a way to end something, And it's even like that, just like sort of like Out of the Furnace, like when Forrest Whitaker's there's like, don't shoot him, Christian Bale. What do you do? Don't shoot. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. And he's just standing there, and you just see it thinking through his head, and just Woody Harrelson's just like hobbling away, like as slow as can be, and he's just got this huge field to run down, and it's like there's nowhere really for him to go. Technically, but it's either escape and run away, or Christian Bale's just going to pull up the gun and just say, you know what, everything goes bad for me. This is the one thing that can like relieve me right here. At least this guy will
release me. This was the one thing that could release him.
Exactly. And it's just like
it's like he had like an imaginary Eddie Vedder appears on his shoulder, just singing that song, playing an acoustic guitar.
And then I think the other thing I just love about Out of the Furnace too is there's just moments in it that I think that's like. There's just this like a handful of like dark comedy moments, and I'm not.
We've been over this, yeah.
And it's just like all those ones. Like when I was just watching it, like it's just like I just want to like bust up laughing. It almost seems so weird because it's like some people just wouldn't get it, but I mean, the best part's just that intro. Holy crap, that intro! It's just eat that
Well, do you
fucking
say
hot
if
dog.
you say like dark comedy? I don't think it's supposed to be funny. I just think it's funny to
No,
us. It's really fucked up people. It's like that part where he's just like, he says, "Are you okay to drive?" Like, "That's all right. This fucker drives." I've only seen the movie once, but I remember this part so vividly.
so
It's like
vividly
this fucker drives itself. What's so fucking funny?
funny.
He's like, "Give me the fucking hot dog. Open
I,
your mouth."
I was gonna eat the hot dog. Give me the fucking hot dog. Chucks out the bun out the door. Open your fucking mouth. And I don't know what it is. It's just like one of those ones, like just like,
Just
and I
the
think
look, soulless look in his eyes. He doesn't even look angry, but it's in his voice, and he's just like, "What's so fuck?" It's just, how do you get that mad over nothing? You know what I mean? Plus it's Woody Harrelson, so
I think it
what?
top it off. It's Woody Harrelson, and it's just one of those ones. Like, yeah, it's a scene that's. I don't think nobody intends it to be funny. I just think it just ends up. It's like this is why I think dramas always have some of the best comedy in them, is because nobody intends for a lot of things to be funny, or if they do put a joke in there, it's like they got a really good joke, but it's not like they're writing a comedy, so this is the only joke they need to put in, or the only couple ones they need to. That, and then the other part just makes me laugh. This is another part that like nobody really get except for us, but I just remember like that part where like Casey Affleck's like, you know what, like I don't want to work in the mill. Fuck the mill. It killed our father. All this stuff. He's like, and Christian Bale's just like, that mill. It gave your dad a job. It gives me a job. What's wrong with the mill? And all I could think of was like, what's wrong with Grandpa Mill or Uncle Mill or whatever he called it? He was there for us. Who raised you? That mill raised you.
It's like it's something kind of like somebody working at fucking Walmart for a long time. Or no, but here's a better one. It's kind of like how Hank Hill has this love and appreciation for all things propane because it provides for him. It's kind of the exact same thing. Kind of like he's the only one that loves it that much, but everybody else is like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's propane, Hank. It's propane. No, you don't understand. It's important. If it supplies us, we must respect the propane. You know.
Yeah, it really is. It's like he treats like the mill. And that's the other like sad part too. Is like, when he gets out of jail, he goes back to work for the mill, and then people are like, "Isn't that mill closing?" It's like, "Don't remind me. This is the mill's all I got for the last moment. Me and Uncle Mill, we go way back." But it is. It's just one of those movies. It's like The Wrestler. I think of it like that same way. Is like The Wrestler. I've watched it so many times, and it's everybody always questions it like, "How do you watch that so many times?" I mean, it's a good movie, but it's so sad. I'm like, I don't know. The story drives me into it.
I've seen Wrestler probably a good 4 or 5 times. I still really
That's
like that
still
movie.
more than most
I
people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, another example, like, not that this is a movie that I guess today's Darren Aronofsky cast. Like Requiem for a Dream. A lot of people they said like, you know what? I'm glad I saw it, but I never want to see that movie ever again. I'm like, I own it. I actually like that movie, and I've watched it maybe not a whole bunch of times, but I've seen it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and not out of kind of like, oh, it's on or someone showing me. I'm just like, oh, I feel like watching this today, and a lot because I think that it's such an
I'll
interesting
put it
art
in the
direction.
background just to make me feel a little bit happy about my life.
I have a couple weird movies that actually just make me. I just like, for instance, like Red State. That is a very bleak, very dark movie, and that is literally a movie I can just throw in the background. I just think that's some of where Kevin Smith's dialogue is really sharp and very just something about that movie. I don't know why, because it's not. It's his least funny movie easily, but it's not even meant to be a comedy. But you know what I mean. It's just something about that movie though, just kind of like, oh, I could just put it on its background noise. Like Departed, I could always just throw on for the background. Like Clerks, Red State, uh, In Bruges. You know what I mean? Just these talkie pictures. Because the dialogue in all those movies are so great.
I know. Going to like another movie. Here's something I actually haven't watched in a long time, and it's just one of those like humongous movies that you almost just feel like you see it so many times that sometimes you kind of forget when you haven't seen it in a long time how amazing it is. Sort of like how I said of the Blues Brothers on like the last podcast or whatever. I watched Die Hard again, and I think it's been about 5 years since the last time I watched it. At least that one, because I've seen the other Die Hards. Well, I watched Die Hard 3 not too long ago again. And then I guess I saw Die Hard 5 when it came out in theaters, which was 3 years ago or something. It goes to show how long ago it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But, that first Die Hard movie, just how good that film is, and just you think about like what that movie did for like the industry, like how many movies just copied all sorts of different elements of that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It
yeah.
just,
I think it's one of those things where that's one I've seen so many times. It's been some time since I've actually watched it, but if I watch Die Hard, I end up going like kind of like a Die Hard marathon where I watch all of them kind of in a row. Usually,
Mhm.
it's never really I just watch one or I might like watch one day and the other next. Though I do not feel the need. I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm not saying this to be shitty or cynical. I do not feel the need to go back to see number five because number five was I mean, I'm not trying to because we're usually very forgivable. Number five was just not that good. It wasn't even really okay. The more I think about it, it was just whatever, you know.
yeah, it was one of those
I
movies.
feel bad saying this, but it was bad. It was bad. I feel bad saying this because that should have been amazing, but it was like I'm thinking back on number five. It was bad. It wasn't okay. It was bad.
It had a couple moments of action scenes that were pretty cool. Like they had that one where they're in Russia where there was a big car crash, and it went on for it was like really like that was the best part of the movie. It was like 7 minute like action scene. But yeah, that remember that die, and I think it was one of those ones like we were on just like this gravy train of like amazing action films because it was like that was the time it was like you got Last Action or not Last Action. I mean, The Last Stand came out, and then we had Bullet to the Head. So it's like all the big action stars are getting these sweet ass movies. So they're like, oh fucking Die Hard 5, fucking Rage, and then next thing you know, you go to see it and you're like, that movie was rated R too. It's like I think the one that was PG-13 felt more like a rated R movie than this one did.
It was
But
rated
yeah,
R for a few fucks, and then like someone got shot in the head, and there's the kind of homage they make because with that whole movie, it's like whenever Hollywood tries this shit, it always seems to backfire in some way, or like maybe not entirely backfire, but kind of not work the way they planned. The idea for that one was because Jai Courtney was his son, and the idea for this one was they're on this adventure together, and then when this movie was over, they're gonna pass it on to Jai Courtney, and he's the new. It's now his series, but it's just like nobody liked his character. Nobody liked his character in that movie. He was just like, "What the fuck, Dad? I mean, yeah, sure, he could fight, but even for being like a guy who's in the CIA, he was so like, whatever, Dad, you were never there. There's got to be another trope. There's got to be something else you can do to have conflict between father and son. The whole, you were never there. You were always, just helping. You're always stopping buildings from exploding and like hanging out with Samuel Jackson and saving our mom. You were never there. There's got to be another trope than that.
I know it's. I always just think that's like one of those storylines. I hate that when I see that in a movie. I'm almost at that point where if like I see that kind of storyline, I'm almost might go, I don't need to watch this movie. I've been there, done that, seen that storyline way too many times. I've never liked it. I think it's all. I hate that one where like kids are. I hate just unappreciative kids. Okay, well, it says I like the wrestler, and it's got an unappreciative kid in that movie who just needs to be like bitch slapped a couple times. But it's just one of those ones like, and the pinnacle of them all is fucking War
I'll
of the
smack the
Worlds.
love in you. Ram slam or whatever.
They call me a
Ram
one-trick pony. I got a second trick up my sleeve. It's beating my kids. Dad, you
Oh
have
my
multiple
god, that
kids?
movie. Maybe then, if they had like a scene like that, that would have like made the Academy think, oh my god, it has child abuse. It's political. It's controversial now. We got to take another look at this movie.
Is it considered child abuse if she's like 35 years old? Yeah, sure, why not?
No, I still love the wrestler and that part though. I'm kind of glad. I mean, it was one of those things like I didn't even really hate the girl that much. It was more like I don't even think it was one of those things. I think it was more of like I think that was one of those cases where he literally left. I don't think he supported them. I think it was one of those things he literally chose his career over the family. Maybe I'm wrong there. I got to watch it again perhaps.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't really explain it enough to like give that. It's kind of like an open-ended one there.
they kind of keep it vague enough to where you can kind of, in my opinion, where you can kind of side with either one of them. They keep it vague enough, and I think that's fine. It's more just literally something as shitty as like whatchamacallit. Like I really like this movie, but 310 to Yuma, the one song in the movie is so fucking shitty and so fucking like such an asshole to his dad for no real reason. The rest of the movie's pretty good, but he changes by the end. It's kind of like the what was it like the Red Dead Redemption thing. Like the kid has absolutely no reason to be pissed off at his dad when his dad is like, "Why am I doing this? So you don't get fucking shot, boy." You know?
Yeah, just like so you and mom don't end up like at the bottom of a lake. Like, yeah, whatever,
Exactly.
Dad. Like, fuck you, Dad. Like, it's just like I don't know. I hate that archetype of characters, and they just use it so much. And I mean, I know there is a lot of shitty kids out there, so I know why it's in there because it's like relatable. But Does anybody really like seeing that? Like, I just want to know, does anybody love seeing shitty kids like torturing adults like in movies? Like,
That kind of makes me wonder because as kid, when you watch a movie now, well, all right, we're neither of us are parents, so we'll watch movies from when we
but
were
we
from like.
have parents, so we can relate. No.
No, no, I'm saying like I've got to think. I'm trying to think of this from the other side for a second, because we're used to seeing movies where it's kind of like maybe the kid learns a lesson by the end, maybe he doesn't, but a lot of times movies from the kid perspective. Imagine having a parent and like trying to like relate. You have a shitty kid. Like this guy's got a shitty kid. You got a shitty kid. It's just one of those things. Kind of like watching something
Like what? Like
watching
World's
something
Greatest
like
Dad?
I was gonna tip my tongue. I was just about to say that. That's probably gonna make any parent kind of mad about, and because every kid is, no matter how good you were, at some point you're a little shit to your
Yeah,
parents,
you
and
did something
you
that
know,
was stupid.
yeah, yeah. So now, whenever like a parent watches a movie like that's from the parent's perspective, where it's like it's a shitty kid. It's not like where it's from the kid's perspective and the kid learns a lesson. Like I should be better than my parents, or it's literally from the parent's perspective. Just like you got this guy's got a kitty shit. You got a shitty kid. Relate. It's kind of like the opposite '90s thing.
But I always just wonder because it's like one of those ones that's like just people want to see like if they have a shitty kid, that seems like the last thing they want to see on a movie screen is somebody else's shitty kid because they're like, I see a shitty kid every day and it's related to me. It's like
Yeah.
when I go to the movie theater, I don't want to see John McClane's son be a shitty fucking 35-year-old kid.
It's
You know
like,
what I
well,
mean?
another. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, I'm kind of wondering if it's
Is
just
that what my
one of those
child's
things
gonna
where it
grow up
reaches
to
out
be?
to
He's
them,
gonna
like,
work at the
yeah.
CIA and be a fucking dick when we go on a fucking Die Hard mission to Russia? Because that's what I want with a kid. I want to have a Die Hard son who would go to Die Hard Russia with me. Okay, Dad, doesn't Die Hard doesn't have to be in everything. Yeah, well, in my world it does.
This is why me and your mother broke up.
She said she didn't want
This
to
is
be
why
a Die Hard wife.
You mean she didn't want to get captured and have you save her every other day? Yeah, it's always about her. No, but like, what's I gonna say regarding Die Hard or relating? Oh yeah, for instance, like another example, I'm kind of wondering if you got like a really difficult kid. It's like watching a movie like Babadook. I wonder if that's one where it's just kind of like where it's like this movie gets me. I understand, or if it's just one of those things like I don't need to be fucking reminded. I don't need to be reminded. Go away.
Yeah, because I just feel like I just wonder. It's like who does the shitty kid movies appeal to? Maybe they just appeal to like shitty kids. Because I just remember being a kid. Like when I was a
It's
kid,
like
I hated shitty kid
gratifying
movies.
porn or something for them. Like, yeah, yeah, be an asshole to that parent.
Yeah, there's like those kind of kids. They're like 10 years old and they watch those movies where like these movies like I can't watch these ones where like there's like children and they're like torturing adults throughout the entire movie and it's just one of those ones like no matter what this adult's trying so hard to either be nice or he's like dating their mom and he's trying everything known to mankind, something like that. But no matter what, these kids are just so fucking shitty to him. I've like the only people I assume that can appeal to is really shitty kids who are fucking taking notes while the movie's going on and going, yeah, I'm gonna so torture mom's next boyfriend just like this.
Was it like, what's a good example? Like, this is a much more toned down version, but you're gonna be like, where the fuck did this one come from? Kind of like in Homeward Bound, where like there was like like because I remember they were just the mom. Don't ask me. I love that movie a lot when I was a kid. The kids were just getting the mom was just getting married to some new guy, and he's just like, oh hey kids, I'm just trying to ease in. I'm not trying to be your take over your dad's spot. I'm just trying to ease in. I'm like, okay, it's chill. We'll just baby steps. They're all trying to like take. And it all seems fairly from going off my memory. It all seems fairly like a natural progression. This is like kids. We've been looking for a while. Maybe it's just time we got new pets. Fuck you! Fuck you! And like leaves. It all like happens all at once. Like Jesus Christ. Okay, I'll put up some more missing posters for your fucking 2 dogs and cat.
Yeah, geez, what more do you want me to do?
Fuck. We gotta go on a whole fucking manhunt for these dogs, Dad.
I always look at Homeward Bound as like kind of like the pinnacle and the end of like the talking dog movies because after that there's really not that's when it starts to translate into like the CG talking dog movies and that's where I think it loses it. I mean maybe it's because it's skipping to like a new generation of people that can handle CG talking dogs, but I kind of like it where like the dogs and cats and animals were almost like psychic, and that's how they talk to each other.
That's what when I was a kid. Granted, I wasn't the brightest kid. I still wouldn't say I'm even the brightest adult. But I was like, well, Disney told me it, so it must be true. I mean, well, like I see, like my dog and my cat sitting across from each other. I'm like, you guys fucking talking about me right now? I would literally think that these dogs have like dogs and cats have a psychic connection.
I saw Look Who's Talking. I know what you guys are up to.
Yeah. She's like, I'm on to you. I'm on to you. Quit talking shit on me. Quit talking shit on me. Ryan's young dog again. Just let it go. Let it go. It's a phase.
So hopefully, God, we should have never showed him that Homeward Bound movie.
Next, like it's not at least not as bad as when we showed him Kazam and he's shaking the boombox like, "Where's Shaquille O'Neal? Where's Shaquille O'Neal?"
One time we took him to a Best Buy and there was about 100 fucking boomboxes there. We had to be escorted out. Let's just.
He's got to be in one of these.
He would take it, shake it, and yell Shazam at the top of his lungs, and then throw it down and bust it.
Kazam, Kazam, get it right.
Kazam. Because Shazam would be the Genie movie, or not the Genie movie, but the Genie Hanna Barbera one. Or is that Kazam too?
Kazam? Yeah, it was maybe that was the
'60s Hanna Barbera one where like they have like the flying camel, and they got the genie.
Maybe that was a modernization of it. I didn't really think about that.
I always kind of thought it was because I remember just watching both those shows or both the show and the movie at the same time.
It's kind of like one of those things. Like there's one of those every once in a while those things you liked as a kid, and like, oh yeah, I love this thing as a kid, but like it's fine where it is. There's no need to make a live action reimagining of it because for a little while they're talking Hong Kong Phooey live action one, and I don't know. I think that would be a mistake unless you wanted to make it like some ultra really gritty like 1970s like Hong Kong Phooey type movie,
Yeah, if you just kind of like.
Gave it like a Scorsese, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets type vibe,
Meets like a Bruce Lee movie.
Exactly, yeah.
It could work, but it's kind of one of those ones. It's like a strange one because that Hong Kong Phooey, like it's totally like a show of the times. I mean, you got this dog played by Scatman Crothers, which is anything played by Scatman Crothers, you should be there. But he's like pretty much a black dog who works as a janitor who fights crime, on his off times, and he jumps into his locker.
It is very much something of the time, now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah, because now if you want to have a black guy who was also a dog, who was also a janitor.
Yeah, I think you would actually... Maybe it'd have to be, just like to make it seem just a little less racist, you have to be like, well, he's working at his real estate firm, or something like that, and then he goes out and fights crime. Just to break the racism just a little bit.
They should really just take all those, like, Hanna-Barbera ones and just make weird fucking live-action movies out of them. But don't make them, like, kiddie. Just treat them, like, very serious. Like a serious Jabberjaw movie.
I could see that. Like, we genetically engineered this shark to be the greatest detective the ocean has ever seen. But he also plays in a death metal band.
Yeah, but he just sits around and watches Three Stooges all day. That's okay. That's his gimmick.
I could just see him when he finally, because when they actually finally catch the bad guys, he is all like, which one was he was like to be like Mo? He says, "Oh, we finally caught you. Oh, what you gonna do? Oh, fuck!" And just starts like brutally just eating them right there in front,
With like the band just
band members stand there like arms crossed, like nodding, like yeah, it's fucking metal.
Dude, that'd be sick though. Like make Jabberjaw, but make it all like. About like they're a metal band now instead, and Jabberjaw, their fucking mascot / singer is a fucking shark. I don't know, did he play drums or something in that one? But let's make him a singer instead.
He played drums because he was too big to be the front man. So everyone was so like oh yeah, I don't remember the name of their band. Like was it the Aquanauts or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that.
I think it was like the Neptunes or something. And they'd be it makes sense, the Neptunes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that's what it was. And it would just be like, hey, yeah, let's go see this rockin' new band, guys. It's like, future 70s underwater shit. Cool, And then when they get there, just be like, yeah, look at this band. No one's like, anybody notice there's a fucking shark playing drums? Yeah, he has good pace. He has a good beat. Let's keep this going. There's a fucking shark on drums. Whatever, man. Don't sweat the small things.
There's a guy over in the corner on acid. What's the point? Shark on drums is not the fucking same thing as a shark on acid, or it's a guy on acid in the corner.
On acid.
Just have Jabberjaw like fucking snorting cocaine and like the restroom fucking punching the wall, breaking it.
He just needs to like. He's got this. He doesn't really. He's a thrill seeker. He likes drumming, but it doesn't. The reason they go on these mystery adventures in the first place is to satisfy his hunger, because he can't really. He doesn't want to just eat anybody. He wants to only eat bad people, but he has to eat somebody. So he has to. That's why the reason
It's like a vampire almost, but a shark.
Exactly.
Like he has to feed at some point. He's like one of those ones you can't just live off like eating people's pets for a while.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like he can't really like, that it's the hardest thing for him is when a bunch of groupies come in the room and says, no, I can't do it. There's too much temptation. He has to go out and just find like a hobo and eat him.
It'll cut back to like that. What there was that one time, and it just shows like snippets, almost like from Dusk Till Dawn, how they like show like pieces like so quickly. But there's this one where it just shows, and every single time it kind of builds more and more on this flashback, and after a while you decide like, oh fuck, one time there was a bunch of groupies in of Jabberjaw, and then he ate them all. There's just body parts everywhere and blood and guts.
So now he's too afraid. He's like, I want human contact, but I can't. So he just has that's the main reason to go on. Like there's not really any real righteous sense of like justice. It's just like, I gotta eat something. And it has to be somebody that's already marked for death,
Like Death Note or something.
Yeah.
He's looking down. He's like, this man went to jail for raping and murdering some kid. Like, I must eat him. Wait,
it's like they're bounty hunters. That's what they're doing. They're bounty hunters. They're like, this guy's got a warrant on him. They just like, we gotta feed Jabberjaw. Like, here's a better idea. How about we just get a fucking drummer that doesn't eat people? Well, he's a really good drummer. He's the fucking Neil Peart of the ocean. Come on.
That's like on the movie poster.
They gotta have like who'd be on the all right, because it would be like some super group. In the movie it'd be all the actors playing, but there'd be some super group together doing like all the Neptune songs, and then you'd have all the other songs just on there. Like who would be on that soundtrack? I mean, imagine Neil Peart would be a part of the Neptunes. Be Neil Peart.
Well, aren't we going for like a metal band though?
Yeah, but Rush is a little metal. Come on, he could do some metal. That's true.
Drumming. It's definitely kind of like but I guess when I was picturing it like almost like he was like Jabberjaw was part of like a Cradle of Filth like band or something like that.
I guess it could be that. I was thinking like Metallica kind of thing, but we can go with whatever you prefer. Cradle of Filth can be one of the. That sounds like something that would be on this movie soundtrack. Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, like Cradle of Filth, Wednesday 13, fucking. Put Avenged Sevenfold on there, Rob Zombie. See, we're taking Jabberjaw and taking it to this next level of like where it should be. Probably need some like new who's some like a little bit more modern bands for the kids out there that like we're like
some modern shit. I'm like, as far as like modern like metal, like air quotes metal, because I haven't really kept up with that in a long time. Oh fuck, what else is there?
Oh no, dude, this is the perfect band for Jabberjaw. The band Ailstorm, the pirate metal band.
Because Ailstorm, there you go.
You got to have them. Like, if you have something involving water and sharks, they got to be there.
Okay, Ailstorm, maybe. I wrestled a bear once. Something kind of like that.
There's another one. So we got about a super group going there, but I think that'd just be sweet, just this band. Because that's the one thing too. Here's another thing: they've never really made movies too much about like real like death metal or anything like that. I mean, I remember the first time that I heard like a screaming song in a movie, it threw me off. I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And it was, like a mainstream movie, not just like this
Cannibal
movie
Corpse and Ace Ventura.
Yeah, there's like that. That's like one of those like weird moments where you're like, "Really?" And you almost like you remember like as a kid, but at the time you didn't know who the hell Cannibal Corpse was, so you go back and watch, you're like, "That's fucking right, Cannibal Corpse is there." And I think it's Jim Carrey. So weird, that was like one of his favorite bands. That's why they're in there.
It just seems so weird though, because Cannibal Corpse. I mean, is that on the soundtrack too? Because you listen to like your average Cannibal Corpse song, Ace Ventura does not come to mind.
No, it's
nothing
not like,
happy comes to mind.
Well, I think don't you have like that Secret Agent Man song on there? So it's like we get that like Secret Agent Man. Next song is Cannibal Corpse, where it's like mutilating
Yeah,
babies and eating fetuses and so on. All the
Cannibal
fun
Corpse
stuff
is
like
always just so. I don't want to sound like a puss, but it was always too dark for me. Just too dark. Like we make
it's
jokes about like a shark who has like a problem eating people and he's a bounty hunter and all that, but really when it gets down to like Cannibal Corpse, so that's just too fucking dark. It's like fuck a virgin with a knife. No, 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 no. It's just like, oh, okay, okay, okay. Let baby steps. Here, check out this promotional art. What's the promotional art? It's like a it's like a baby skeleton. Its head's fucking crushed. Like, oh, that's
with this Jabberjaw
nice.
in the background.
Giving like devil horns. Well, he can't give devil horns because he has fins, but he's trying his best. That's another reason he's mad. He can't do devil horns.
Uh, I would see that one if that was like the death metal version of Jabberjaw live
Death
action.
metal, you like it could be like the death metal version. You could do the punk version, whichever. Jabberjaw was one that was like the best of the Scooby Doo ripoffs.
I know because some of the other ones like I didn't really care for that much.
There's the bug.
Like
There's the Doom
yeah, the
Buggy
buggy
thing
one. It's like sadly enough, as a kid, I watched every single one of them for God knows why. I think just
because it was on. It was
yeah, there
on.
was
That's
just
the
that
only
when
reason.
you were a kid, like the TV was just kind of like it's there. The TV watches over with me. It educates me. The Drew Carey Show is how I learned about life. It's like you get like all these weird things like that.
It's the weirdest thing. When I was a kid, I probably watched more programs intended for adults than I do as an adult now. I remember of all the shows I watched a lot as a kid, I got roped into. Like I watched Boston Public. Like when
Oh
I was
yeah.
like 12 and 13, I would frequently watch Boston Public. This drama about a school in Boston, just a high school, and like they just teachers dealing with shitty students and like high, dealing with like from the board of directors, like this school's about to go under because there's like a school shooting every week. This kid came to school not wearing matching socks. This kid over here has like an unwanted pregnancy. This kid's a hooker. So it's like every single week. It was like after a while they're kind of running out of stuff. It's like this teacher fucked that teacher in the classroom in front of the students. So it just eventually like one. I remember like I think it was the first episode. One of the teachers like brought in like a fucking gun, but it was blank lips. It's like you kids don't understand. I brought a fucking gun to class. Bang bang bang. It's just like. And it's just like he's still there like for the rest of like the next 4 seasons.
Well, I think as a
It was
kid you
just
would.
very. Go ahead.
I think as a kid, I'm not too sure like the exact reasoning behind watching certain things like that, and I don't know if it was like did it make you feel like you were maybe more like in with the adult crowd by doing it, or did you just watch it
Maybe
just because like you're like it was on and it just seemed interesting? I don't know, learning,
half and half.
education.
I want to say the show originally it advertised itself as a comedy, but then you watched it, it was like, oh, it's just it's a drama. But it was like anything, I think you just kind of like watched it. And I mean, keep in mind, this is like if I had YouTube or whatever the fuck, no way I'd be watching that show then. But I think it was just one of those things like it was on and it made me feel a little bit more like an adult. I watched more adult shows when I was 12 and 13 than I do now. The most adult show I watched recently was like I just started watching Sons of Anarchy, and then before that it was Breaking Bad. So everything
Well,
else. Now when I say adult
I think
show,
you just hit it on the you just hit the hammer on the nail right there. I think that's it. I bet you nowadays it's kids watch less of like kind of adult shows because they have access to constant kid stuff. When we were kids, you had like the fucking Saturday morning stuff, and maybe when they played things in like the evening and whatnot. So the rest of the time after those handful of hours before a Cartoon Network and a Nickelodeon and all that kind of stuff kind of had cartoons on the whole time. Once cartoons were done, you're like, well, what's next? Because I'm not leaving this fucking TV anytime soon. So I think
Kevin
that's also
Smith
how
always
you.
talks about. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but I think that's how like you kind of run into like watching a lot of these shows because you only got in a certain. Because I remember like as a kid when Batman was on TV, I'd watch Batman, and what came on after Batman was Saved by the Bell. What came on after Saved by the Bell? Baywatch. But that was because it was the only
There's
channel to
progression.
watch, so you just kept fucking watching what was on TV. was like one of the 2 or 3
Sorry
channels that
for
came in.
sorry for all the cutoffs today, folks. There's a big delay in the thing. Sorry about that today, folks.
Wait, what?
But I was
I don't
saying
have a
because
delay on my end.
I got a delay on my end, I think.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, it's all good. Anyway,
It won't
it's
be there when
kind
I edit
of
it,
like
so.
oh, there you go. Well, it's like one of those things like Kevin Smith, for instance, like he mentioned this. It's just kind of like I would always be so resentful to this show or that show because man, its cartoons are over and we're into like old people time. And I kind of know what he means because when like Nickelodeon was over, it would go to like Nick at Night because that was one of those
Which is
things you
literally old
discover.
people time.
Yeah, you discover like, oh wait, there's this channel for kids and kids all the time. You guys, oh my god, this is always kids programming. This is amazing. Well, what do they do? What do they do? Do they just keep going? They skip. Oh, what the fuck is this? I Love Lucy. What the fuck? Leave it to Beaver. That's not. No, So I just got very resentful and very hateful to like towards all black and white shows for a long time, just because it meant like Nickelodeon was over. So I should like
Yeah.
fuck Lucy. Everyone loves Lucy. Everyone fucking hates Lucy. At least I do. And then
Well, that was
go
like
ahead.
because like before I ever had like satellite and I just had like antenna. That makes you feel fucking old. Like, well, I just had the antenna and the UHF channels, and there's only like 3 or 4 of them to watch. I love when old people used to go like, "Oh, you don't remember, but there used to be a time with only 3 channels." I'm like, no, 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 no. I lived in the fucking mountains back in like 25 years ago. I know exactly what it's fucking like with only 3 channels.
I remember what was it? There was like the switchboard. There was almost like a radio station. There's like the little like plastic switchboard, like A and B for like the different like sides of the channel. You remember that? I don't know if
I
you
just
had.
remember that for like when you would switch between like I remember having that when I first had satellite, and then you could switch back and forth between your satellite or your antenna,
Yeah, it was pretty
or
much
your
something
satellite or your
like.
VCR, or your satellite and your UHF antenna.
I remember just like the A and B line. It'd be like, oh, it's on 13B or on 13A, whatever.
But like I just remember because the only channels I had before that was just like Fox, and Fox just had Fox Kids, which was like where everything good was, and then there was like CBS and NBC, and I don't even think NBC really had cartoons. If it did, I don't remember very much good coming from it. I think CBS had things like um, uh, Magic School Bus and like kind of more educational programs, or was that on PBS? I don't know.
That was on PBS. Maybe it was on other ones, but I remember Magic School Bus, Arthur, Wishbone. That was all PBS.
Okay, yeah, so I had PBS as well too because I remember watching all those ones. But that's like what I had. But Fox was the one that had like Power Rangers, Batman, and Ninja Turtles, and like all like the grand fucking '90s shows. X-Men, Spider-Man. Like what defines my life started with Fox, which sadly enough doesn't even exist. There's no such thing as Fox Kids anymore.
I know. I heard that. I was kind of because my nephews they're always watching Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. They never really watch Fox or anything like that. But plus it's probably one of those things like why waste that? They
We just
got
put on
plenty of
Cartoon
other
Network.
options.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I know,
but
I understand why, but it's just sort of sad. It's like, and it's been gone for like 5 or 6 years. It hasn't been like a recent thing.
last time I saw a thing of it, it was called the Fox Box.
Yeah, and I think that was like in the somewhere in the mid 2000s or like mid to late 2000s.
That was already after my time when I was done watching it. But I remember there's that Sonic X show. Like, oh, it's on Fox Kids. I'm like, oh, I'm curious about what this new Sonic show is. So let's see what this is all about. It's like, you're on the Fox Box. It's like, oh, okay, it rhymes. I get it, but But I remember like my family. We actually had we had one of those black boxes. It was actually illegal to have because it had everything pretty much. And I remember
Your
some
dad just looks at you. He's like, "Don't tell fucking anybody about this. Whatever you
statute of
do."
limitations. Wink, wink. Okay, I'm talking about this because this never happened. Funny story. What if it did? Wink, wink. Okay, so we had one of those boxes. I remember at some point in time. I remember this. They actually had like cable cops knocking on the door, and they didn't have any real official right to come in. Like, hey, can we just come in and check out the box or something? Like, we don't have that. Like, well, we believe that somehow you got one of these boxes, and it's our job to come in and get it. Well, you're not coming in here. Where's your warrant? Well, we don't have to, but we'll keep on coming by until just like playing fucking good cop, bad cop. Like, where's the fucking box?
Well, I think it's that thing. It's like they're like, we see that there's a line going to your house, but we know that there's no service at this address.
And it's one of those things. It's just like, I
Like
don't know.
my
It's
son
like
likes to play
no,
jump rope with it, so okay.
Yeah, I remember that. My mom's like, "You're not coming into my house." It's like, well, we do. Well, we will become. Keep on coming. They're trying to be all like bad at. Like one time, I remember answered the door, like, "Hey, buddy, is it okay if we come?" I just slammed the door.
It's just like Ryan, whatever you do, if you see a guy that looks like a cable guy, close the door on him quickly.
It's like one of those things, though. You wouldn't even have to put anything else. It'd be like, Ryan, if a stranger ever comes to the house and has to be let in, say no. It's like, yeah, he might steal our cable. Wait, what? Yeah, he might steal our cable. I can't let that happen. Like, oh, okay, well, that's not the reason, but that's whatever motivates you.
Well, as a child, TV was like life. You know what I mean? Like it's funny because I grew up to be like you think by being a child where TV was life, you'd grow up to be an adult where like you would still be in the TV, and like now as an adult, I'm like no fuck TV. I'm almost like I remember used to seeing those posters. You'd see them in school where it says like kill your TV, and I'd be like kill your TV. Like what the fuck is with that? Like it offended me personally on a level. Like I was standing looking at this poster like fuck you poster. Who the fuck do you think you are? Kill your TV? Well, why don't I just kill myself then? And I was like I really took it personal as a child. As an adult, though, I kind of go, I know what they mean finally. And, like, it takes a long time, but you're like, it's almost like you want to tell yourself as a kid, it's like, when they say kill your TV, they're not talking about movies and video games and stuff like that. They're talking about the mindless programming that almost will eventually become reality TV and things like that. They're like, that's what they talk about. And you're like, I get it. But that's how I feel, because nowadays I'm like such an anti-TV person. It's
Well,
like,
there's
love
some
movies.
shows. Yeah.
But it's just like I think when I think of TV, I think of just kind of like those generic shows where nothing really happens, sort of like reality TV where nothing really happens in them. You know, they're purely entertainment. You don't really learn much from it. You know, I'm not putting down things like if you're watching documentaries and other good programming that does appear in TV. Because if you filter through it, I mean, I've always said my entire education is all based off like TV. Like the only reason I did good in school was because of TV. That's where I learned everything at. People used to always ask me like, "How do you know so much about history?" I'm like, "Dude, fucking watch the History Channel." This is like me at 10 years old or whatever. But I'm like, dude, that's where I learned. I learned so much stuff from TV. So I can't doubt
History Channel's
TV at
not
the same
shit
time.
now, though. History Channel's not shit now, though. Unfortunately,
Not shit or is shit.
it's not shit anymore. It's just like it is shit, I guess, however you want to put it.
You know, I
It's
was
kind of weird.
confused on
It's
what
one of
you're
those
talking
things. It's one of those things like, man, that ain't shit, or like, man, this is total shit. We know what they both mean. They mean total opposites, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like there was a time where you could walk away from the History Channel learning something. It was all like World War II primarily, but then it would just suddenly go like, now we're going to like now we're going to aliens from space that like that George Washington was best friends with or some shit. It's always all this crazy conspiracy theory shit, and then like I know Cisco loves this show, but fuck Pawn Stars. Fuck that show.
I went to Pawn Stars. I met Chumley there.
I know
He was
you
pretty
met
cool.
you. Yeah, it's more one of those things like it's
Yeah,
just
if I was
like
there, I would have fucking jumped over the counter and just started punching him in the face until I got thrown out of there.
I don't even really. It's more of just one of those things. Like it just seems like I don't know. It's just it's not that the idea of the show is not cool. I mean, I guess it's just so rehearsed.
The tropes of reality TV that they always have to put
tropes of
together.
reality TV, and then there's be one of those things like they hey what here? Well, I got this really rare vintage globe. There's only like 15 of them left in the whole world. Like, all right. Let me bring in my specialist on this. You know, I have a montage of a guy coming in. So and so is a specialist in globes or whatever. You know that were never made past 1776, and comes in like, yeah, if you look at the nicks right here, yeah, it's all authentic. So this is probably worth like $50,000. Like, oh, $50,000. Okay, give you $100 for it. You know. No. I think I'm going to walk away with this, so at least we're going to walk away with like $500. How about I throw in like $200? They have a little counter thing in the corner, like ding ding, as they're saying this shit. He's like, no, not $200. So I'm really leaning hard on $500. I'll give you like $300 and a half-eaten burrito. Done.
It's like good doing business with you, and then it'd be like him interviewing like that guy was such a fucking idiot. I'm gonna make 50,000 grand off it, and he's gonna probably go home and shoot himself. It's like cut to commercial.
Yeah, exactly. And then they cut in like there'll be something kind of like, oh, this guy's got a car. Like, oh, well, I don't know a whole lot about cars. Let's see what this is. They're all looking around like, looks like a car, has a steering wheel. I'll bring in my car expert. Don't know. Steve is a car expert from the Dunigan. Comes in, same fucking thing.
Steve goes up, just fucking like kicks the car in the wheel. Like, yep, that's a car, all right. 20 grand.
Just like the fucking fat old guy, the dad, the grandpa who's like the cynic on everything. He's like, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time they try to pass that off as a car to us, some shit like that.
No, but I know what you mean. It's just like it's that thing of like, I don't know. I think reality TV is sort of like I'm gonna say this. I think that's what the downfall of TV is, and I think that's what changed me from being somebody who watched TV to somebody who totally avoids TV altogether nowadays.
There's really, I mean, I watch Netflix, but I kind of like I'll marathon shit, and
but that's different though. I don't consider like strange enough. I don't consider that the same as TV. Like when I think of really TV programs, I think of things that are either reality shows, talk shows. I know we're doing a fucking talk show right now, but but that like the news, like those are the things I think the most of TV. Sometimes kind of like dumb sitcoms. Not saying there's not good sitcoms out there, but just like the mindless sitcoms. It's like I like things like animated shows, and there's certain sitcoms I do like, and then there's a handful of television. I'm not a big fan of like television shows. I know that's like mostly all the rage nowadays. It's hard for me to get into a television show. It has to be something really good because they mostly just fill it with characters I don't like. So it's one of those ones. It's hard for me to jump into something like that. Mostly the only thing I really like off TV that I kind of miss more than anything else, I miss kind of just like general documentaries. Now I know you can get those other places, but just the classic things of like good old History Channel and Discovery and PBS and so on. That and then cartoons. Like that's what I do like cartoons a lot. Not really some of the dumb ones they have nowadays, but things like I like if I do ever watch TV, sometimes I flip around and go, oh fuck, they got a new Avengers TV show on. I flip to that, or a new Spider-Man show. I flip to that.
No, yeah, I get what you mean there. As far as like, there's one TV show I've been watching Sons of Anarchy because it's always one I was curious about. I think because I know that like, I liked Breaking Bad. I wasn't in love with it as much as everybody else was, but I liked it. You were okay with Breaking Bad, but there's one I'm watching right now.
I'm like the one who's like it's funny too when I tell people I don't like. I'm like, well, I liked Walt a lot. Like that's what I really liked it, but I didn't like a lot of the other characters. People always go, what? You didn't think it was just like the most amazing show ever, like the best thing ever? I'm like, no, it was okay. It had a great concept, but I hated a lot of the characters in it, and that's what brought it down. But Walt was totally badass. If it was just an entire show about him, then I think it would be an amazing show, but I think it's kind of like, it's like a 50-50 show for me. It's like half of it I think's great and amazing material, and the other half I think is just filler junk. And then when the people go, oh.
They don't know how to respond.
And they stop right there. Yeah, they don't.
Marley was heartbroken when you said that to him. He was so heartbroken when he found out you just thought Breaking Bad was like half awesome, half okay,
People look at me like I'm fucking crazy when I tell them that stuff. I'm like, that's what it is. It's like, I don't know. It's like, maybe if it was just a movie, like, a 3-hour long movie, that they probably going to fit in all the good material into that 3-hour chunk.
Give it 10 years, they probably will make like a Breaking Bad movie, I bet, they'll like try and condense all the major plot points into 2 or 3 movies, possibly. I can see them trying to do something like that. But like, cause now they're already, I saw Man From U.N.C.L.E. today, and that's already like, I'm surprised that movie didn't get made sooner. It got made like, cause that was from our parents' generation. So it's, I'm surprised now it's just getting made. But Sons of Anarchy
that was a show that like my entire life, my mom always said like, oh, there was this great show, Man From U.N.C.L.E. It was kind of like, you would probably like it. It's like 007. It was like Mission Impossible, blah, 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 blah. So for the longest time, I've always known about this show. So the second they had that, I'm like, finally they kind of make that. I'm surprised they didn't make it a long time ago. But it makes sense to make it this year because they got Mission Impossible 5 coming out and 007. Or came out and 007 comes out later.
Yeah, but I was just going to say real quick before I talk about that, I was going to say, check out Sons of Anarchy, because I think you might like that show, because everybody in the show is pretty much on the same. It's not kind of like, oh, what's the secret mischief he's up to, like in Breaking Bad. It's kind of like everybody's on the same page. Everybody is part of this biker gang. Everybody knows. So, and there's some secrets hidden here and there, but it's
everybody talks so highly about that show too. Like I just feel like I wouldn't like it very much. I don't know. Like I'm not gonna say like it wouldn't be enjoyable stuff in it. But I think the other thing about TV is like this is why I like movies more than TV is like I just like don't have that time to like watch a copious like especially those hour like the 45-minute long shows. It's just like it's like
Hmm.
way too long. It's like I'd rather just have it be like 20 minutes or something like that. I don't know. It's like I can handle like a 3 hour long movie, but like when shows are really long, there's very few ones. Like really, the only like show that like or I guess there's about two of them that I really like to keep up with is Arrow and then Flash because it kind of goes with Arrow. Sort of like if you're gonna watch Arrow, might as well watch Flash. I mean, it's the same fucking thing.
One of the best shows I've seen in like a long time is actually Rick and Morty, and I hope I'm not blowing that show too up for you,
But
because the
see,
thing
that's
about that
animated though,
show,
so that changes like the perspective. You know what I mean?
it's like 22 minutes, so yeah, but like it's one of those things where that show, it's I can't remember the last time because now I'm at this age. When I was younger, I could grab like the a DVD season set of like Family Guy and watch that same season set over and over and over. Older I get, I can't really do that as much. Now this show only has one season and like two. It's on like episode 3 or 4 right now of the second season. I've watched within like the month. I've because I kind of like everyone was telling me to check the show out, and I finally did. Within the month I watched it, I've just been kind of revisiting certain episodes like within like a couple of days from each other, and that never happens. Other people are like, yeah, we do that all the time, but I never. I mean, I would rewatch movies and all that, but a lot of times television, I don't really go back and revisit it so much. This show though, it's so good, it's so funny, and it's one of those things like. It's like for people who don't, I'm sure if you listen to the show, you probably know about it, but given the other things we talk about, but it's kind of like if Doctor Who was an alcoholic, he was a little bit more like Doc
See,
Brown from Back
take
to
the
the
Doctor
Future.
Who part away because that makes me not want to watch it when I hear that. The Doc Brown I like, but the Doctor Who part like leads me
What
away from it.
I
And I might have lost you.
got red. Are you got red?
Oh yeah, I'm deep in the red.
I'm killing the camera. Here we go.
Okay, camera is killed. Okay, back in action.
When I say like Doctor Who, I mean it more to the extent of like it's not real because Doctor Who, it's basically the short and simple of it. It's just a guy that goes all over all these different sci-fi adventures, whether it be back in time or to some other world or some other planet or some other universe or alternate dimension. It's something like that, and that's what it is. It's just that's what Rick and Morty is. It's just funny. It doesn't take itself as serious. You know what I'm
Uh
saying?
huh.
And that's just the setup for it. The humor itself is amazing. And but the other thing about the show is it's one of the only times because like most of the times in like animated sitcoms they might have what's supposed to be the sad emotional part, but it's more just put in there just for the sake of being there for the sake of moving the story along. It doesn't really seem that sincere. Even ones I love, like South Park. There are moments where I mean I think they Matt Stone and Trey Parker love South Park, but I don't think have they try and put a whole lot of emotion into it. It's more of just like things to kind of move the story along. There's a few moments here and there, but it's I'm talking about things like you see like in The Simpsons or King of the Hill. You don't see that in much other animated sitcoms. Rick and
Yeah,
Morty is
because
one of the. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as a Simpson and King of the Hill are like good at having a lot of those kind of moments in there.
Yeah, Rick and Morty actually is too. The only thing is Rick and Morty is a lot more of that weirder, crazier humor, but they still find moments to put in that. Like the most recent episode, I'm not going to try and spoil a whole lot here, but it's not really a show like Shocker, but basically Rick kind of caught up with an old girlfriend to an extent, and then she leaves him again, and it kind of like she leaves this letter. There's a few funny little bits in the letter, but leaves in this letter. The letter seems very real. It seems like a real breakup letter. It doesn't seem like something forced or cliche. It actually seems pretty accurate. Something that like a writer got at one point in time. A writer of the show. And then the show episode ends with him almost killing himself, but like pulling out at the last second, and that's how it ends. It doesn't end on a funny note like da 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 da. It actually literally ends with him about to kill himself and then stopping at the last minute credits.
Huh? I know that's one of those shows I've been wanting to check out. And once again, like animated TV, that's always I feel like there's something different there because, like, some things work in like the more TV format, like animation and so on. But and I think kind of like that thing you're saying with like how you don't really go back and watch TV over and over again. Well, I think that's sort of due to a couple things. One, that like TV is just like a copious amount of like time. So like say like you watch a show where you watch like 9 seasons worth, you know, instead of mostly going back and rewatching a season, you mostly just kind of keep trucking through the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time you go through 9 seasons, you're like, that's a lot of material I just watched, you know, and there's always something else around the corner. You know, sometimes how I feel, it's like when I was a kid, I would watch like certain movies like over and over, like almost like maybe I'd watch it every single night. Like I'd watch something like True Lies like every night, and Predator and Spaceballs and all these movies. Well, as I got older, my movie collection got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then there's just always another new movie or another something or another. So like I'll see movies, you know, maybe like movies I really like 2-3 times or so, like when I kind of first get them, and then like they might be a couple years, so I might see them again because I'm always shuffling through all this material.
Mm-hmm. No, I see what you're saying. You kind of, it's just hard to kind of go back to them sometimes when you get older because your collection builds up and
because you just
there's just more shows come up.
Where you're just like surrounded in your room, like there's just so many DVDs and Blu-rays and laser discs and VHSs, and then you just have this like nightmares of that, like they all just collapse on you and you're just stuck underneath them and nobody's ever gonna find you.
I was just gonna say that's probably how you're gonna die. You're probably gonna die like underneath a stack of Blu-rays. I'm probably gonna die beneath a stack of comics that I've yet to read.
It'll just be like that sad thing, like you'll just be laying underneath them. You'll be like, "No, I need to read you, no!" And then they'll just be like, "Well, I guess he died doing what he loved. What was that? Well, I guess he loved fucking DVD racks. I'm not too sure, but somehow, some way, his pants was down. There was DVDs everywhere, and yeah, I'm not too sure what that's supposed to mean."
It's kind of like that Twilight Zone episode where the guy survives the nuclear apocalypse, but steps on, and all he wants to do is read books, but he steps on his glasses. It's like, no, there was time now. It's kind of like that.
People stopped calling me on the phone or knocking on the door. I just could read in peace. I know, I think about that a lot of times too. That's like some of my fears, that, you know, you'll just kind of end up getting in this like state where you can't enjoy all this material that you have, that you someday assume that you'll finally finish all those comics, or you'll finish reading all those books, watch all those movies, and play all those games that you have stacked up, and then just
I guess the equivalent for you for that would be you got all these Blu-rays, but then like the only thing that survived was the VHS player.
I know, it's like, but I've watched all VHSs so many times, but I can't watch these new ones.
Exactly.
Because I still have like the most horrible habit of like buying movies, and just I will literally have a movie in my hand, buy it, and pull it out and go, yeah, that's not gonna be fucking watched, and just throw it in a stack. Like, and I don't mean it like in a fucking horrible American way, but like I kind of know deep down inside that like you have so much to get to. I mean, maybe if you're lucky you'll watch it, but sometimes you almost just kind of buy just to like have it, and maybe someday you'll go like you'll finally get that, like, you know, I really want to watch that movie. Oh, I got that movie, fucking A right.
It's kind of like that thing. If you buy too many, I don't know about, I mean, maybe people who read more don't have this problem, but me, if I got to buy like 1 or 2 books at a time. Because if I buy a whole bunch of books, I'm not talking comics, I'm talking like regular novels. If I buy a whole bunch like all at once, maybe 3 of those 6 are going to get read.
Yeah, that I know how that goes, because and it's just like, because books sometimes like that's like a time factor. You know, certain books you'll just plow through them really quickly, and then other books, even though like they look really interesting or something like that, it's that sort of thing that you almost should just buy it like the moment you feel like you're literally going to want to read it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Pygmy by Chuck Palahniuk. That one took me some time to get through. Not because the story was bad, but it was just such. It's like something maybe you didn't take into account when you bought it. I mean, I guess the option to flip through it is always there. But like, I'll read it when I get home. But I mean, the book itself was written in broken English, because it was written by the idea. It's narrated by a character who's like from, I think, Southeast Asia, and could only like. English is like his 3rd or 4th language, so it kind of takes a minute. It's almost kind of like reading A Clockwork Orange for the first time. You kind of decode it for after a while, and then after, because, you know, he like, there's a part where he's describing like he's describing a Walmart, but he describes it as like a giant. He says like a giant palace covered in glass and blue. As like, you know, like, and then says something to the effect
like,
of
it
like,
sounds like it smells like urine and cleaning products or something like that.
something to that effect, and then also says like a old like he kind of goes of like it's just like aisles and aisles of American goods, and like, I'm saying it in better English than what it's written because he even leaves words out, but like aisles and aisles of American goods, making them fatter and stupider as days go on, and like someone says to me in the voice of an almost dead parrot, "Welcome to Walmart." So it's funny, but it's like you got to kind of like decode it because what I just said, it wasn't even written as clear as that. It's like that in a whole paragraph, of
Well, that was
description.
one of those books where, like, I when reading it, it's like I had to take a break definitely after each chapter. It was not one of those, you could not plow through that book, or else I feel if you plow through that book in like one day, you might not know how to write afterwards for a
Did I
while.
let you? Did I let you borrow that, or did you go and get that book?
I got it from the library.
Did you ever finish that one?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, even like some things were kind of like confusing to read. Like I had to go back, like, what's going on? Oh, fuck, he's raping the guy in the bathroom stall. That's what's going
Yeah, that
on.
was the one where I
Okay.
had to ask you. I was like, did he literally rape that? Because it's written. I mean, like as you said, it's like the way you described it was much more English than it is. I mean, it's like extremely broken English. So it's like you are like fucking. It almost just feels like you're piecing together like an ancient language that you know like half the words, but the other half don't really make too much sense to you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Almost
still like
kind of like
it's a great book and a great story, but it's that's one of those books. I'll say this: I think that'd make like a really good movie because I think if it was narrated to you, that would make it. It would be a little bit more easier to understand if you just were watching this like little Asian kid like fucking narrate in his head everything he sees. I think it'd be a good movie like that.
but I don't know if that movie's gonna get fucking made. If it is, they're gonna have to change the ages or do some things drastically because
Yeah, we're not
you
gonna watch
have
like some
one
8-year-old kid like fucking rape another boy.
or like a 14-year-old kid rape another fucking 14-year-old kid just out of not out of joy, just out of like just his like just out of his like it was purely out of hatred and disgust of Americans. It was just to
Yeah.
prove dominance. That's all it was. I mean, that's as sick and as wrong as that is. It's just the idea that someone did that just out of it's like he's quickly, my snake gets hard. Keep my, as I'm saying this again, it's not even as clear as this. He says, like, my deadly viper snake gets hard with anger and rage.
Yeah, like because it really technically you could almost take it like as like it could mean something clearly else because everything's in like descriptive words but broken English descriptive words. It's never like it's not like full on obvious. So that's why I remember because when I read that chapter, I was like, is that what the fucking happened in there? I just want to make sure because like that's what I like I think happened, but I'm not 100% sure.
After I read the book, I went on like Cliff Notes and kind of like double checked like certain parts. Like, okay, so that I was right. That was what happened. But some oh, that's what's going on there. He was at someone was getting baptized at a church. Okay, just like some random things like that, given the certain narration of that book.
But yeah, this just felt like, like, let's just talk about our huge libraries of collections.
That's kind of what it sounds like. Some of the ones we'll never get around to reading.
Oh, you're living in America. It's just one of those places where you can have all these luxuries and just there to look you back in the
If you
eye.
feel like it. Well,
Yeah,
if you want to keep things recent, if you want to keep things current for a minute, I saw the Man from U.N.C.L.E. today.
I know. There's two movies I really want to see. I want to see Straight Outta Compton, and I want to see Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I was gonna see Straight Outta Compton on Thursday when it came out, but then I looked. I was like, starts at 8 o'clock. Oh, that movie's almost 3 hours long, and with trailers and everything, it's like, yeah, well, that'll be a little too late. So I was like, okay, I'll just see that in the next couple days when I can see it like at my lazy man matinee time when the kids won't be in the way and they want to make me get home so I get to bed early. One of those
I'm
kind of.
surprised. I'm surprised a 3-hour movie about the NWA is playing in Sonora.
I am too. I actually didn't know if that movie was going to play or not there, because I've seen other movies that that have not been played because they've been too radically different or whatever. They didn't play
Well,
Hostel. I
I
know that's
would
not
have.
like in the same category, but
Yeah, I would have actually probably gone over to like, even though I like Guy Ritchie a lot, I probably would have gone more to Straight Outta Compton if it was in walking distance. That's almost kind of like my. That's almost kind of like my bigger my bigger. If there's like a movie I really want to see, it's not playing within one of the two theaters that's in walking distance of me, then like all right, I guess I'm gonna get on the 38, go all the way to the Metreon 16 or whatever. But
well, at
now
least nice thing in San Francisco, everything's technically in walking distance. Because
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I
the
mean,
longest walk you'll do is like an hour and a half.
yeah, I know what you mean, but still, it's one of those things. Like, I'm not gonna lie. When I got like two movie theaters, like I got one like 3 blocks away from me, and another one that's like a 17-minute walk. That's probably the one I like more. But when I got those at my disposal, I try to go to those more often. I'm like, please let this movie come just come to one of those theaters. I don't want to have to go into downtown or get on the bus or anything. Just come to this, just But so I would have saw Straight Outta Compton today if it was playing at one of those theaters, which it wasn't. So I'm probably gonna have to go into downtown like next week or something to go see that movie. I know it was gonna be 3 hours. I just assumed it was gonna be that. I'm glad I know it's a big long movie. I assumed it was just gonna be a little like I assumed maybe like a 2 hour movie, or I'm glad now they're making a big one out of it though. So,
Yeah, it
but
was
yeah, I
like two
saw.
hours and 45 minutes. But once you put trailers and all that stuff in there, I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be 3 hours at least.
Because I mean, not gonna lie, I don't really know a whole lot about the NWA, and I don't really know a whole lot about like the about
Man
rap,
from
like the
Uncle.
hip hop. Or well, I think I have a better idea about that than I do about the early hip hop movement and all that kind of stuff. And now I literally am at this phase though. I'm more interested in seeing something I don't know a whole lot about than something I'm kind of more familiar with. Because I mean, I've seen spy shit before, and I like Guy Ritchie, but Guy Ritchie, he's one of those directors where it's just kind of like I loved his shit when I was like in like late high school, early college. That's kind of when I discovered more of his stuff. That's kind of when it like I'm into film, man. And he'd have all these like British crime films with about like weird eccentric characters. Now, not that his stuff's bad or anything, but it just I mean, it's just one of those things. I guess, doesn't jump out as me as much as it used to. It's still a good movie. It's still enjoyable, and there's still a little like, oh, that's a total Guy Ritchie thing right there. But it just, I don't know. I mean, look, this is a good movie. I'll say right from the get go, Man from U.N.C.L.'s good. I think I wouldn't even say it's decent. It's a good movie. I liked it, but it is kind of like another spy movie, and it has a little bit of that kind of like Sherlock Holmes kind of flair to it.
Uh huh.
Sorry, it's kind of hard to do now that we're doing this on the screen. It's kind of like, is he about to talk? Am I just cutting him off? Am I just going on too long? But
Yeah, I know exactly.
yeah, pretty much. Man from U.N.C.L.E is like based on an old TV show. I never seen it, but I remember seeing my is the weirdest thing. My dad, like, he watched it as a kid, and I remember going through like our basement one time, and I came across some of his old books, and he had some of the Man from U.N.C.L.E like books that were based off the show. I remember flipping through them, and I didn't really know a whole lot about it other than it was an old spy show. And the movie itself is it's pretty much, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I can kind of like break down what happens from A to B, but I mean, you've seen a spy movie before. It's more of just kind of like how stylish it is. I will say though, something that it kind of does is one of like Guy Ritchie's like favorite directors is Sergio Leone. And I think there might be even some moments in this movie because it sounds like he's Western. Like sometimes, when you get like the secret agent guitar, how sometimes it kind of sounds like an electric Western guitar every once in a while.
Well, because I know, like in the 007 one, it is like a Western guitar that they use to make the theme on. It's not on an electric guitar. It's on acoustic, and it might be sort of a nylon string acoustic or something like that. Maybe not. Maybe it's.
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
they do some of that in this. They do some of that in this, but it sounds just there are moments I think they may have actually just straight up took music out of Once Upon a Time in the West or for a few dollars more. It sounds that much like it. And
So maybe
it's
they
kind
did
of the
something
really
like it's like
tense.
kind of like Tarantino and Django.
Possibly. I mean, I will say that like for a while, like Guy Ritchie was known for being kind of like the British Tarantino knockoff, which I enjoyed his movies, but that's kind of what he was known for being. And then he
Uh,
just kind of like took a break, and then he did Sherlock Holmes 2, and this, and then like a bad romantic comedy between I think
Sherlock Holmes.
Revolver. No,
Uh,
no, between like those he did Revolver, which that movie I think stands out the most because that one's not even like a dark comedy. It's just like a straightforward, weird heist movie. Um, but that like a weird psychological heist movie. But like when it gets right down to it, like his three best movies probably Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch,
Snatch.
and Rock and Rolla. Those are really the same fucking movie. It's just a
They
weird group
really
of
are. Well, because
criminals.
like I like all those ones, but it is that sort of thing. You watch Snatch, and then you kind of watch the other ones. You're like, okay, well, I see that Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. That like he had this movie, and maybe he didn't want. Maybe he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to do. So Snatch is the one where he did it all. And then Rock and Roll is just sort of like a different variation of that, and all good. But he's one of those kind of directors. I will say though, I think he's one of those ones like, from watching like lots of his other movies, Snatch is such an amazing movie, and he does remind me of one of those kind of directors where like the other movies he has, they're all good, but they don't have like that just amazingness that Snatch kind of captured. Where somebody like Tarantino, he's able to make consistently these just really amazing movies like time and time again. Where I think Guy Ritchie, he makes good movies time and time again, but he has never captured that same or like amazing movie as Snatch.
I kind of see what you're saying. I mean, Lock, Stock, and Smoke and Barrels came out before Snatch, but I think Snatch is the one where he kind of made like he just like took that in like flat like it's like everything in Snatch. I mean I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but everything in Snatch I think is like I like all the characters in it, even the ones you're not supposed to like. I like because I think he writes them so good. The actors all get it. Like Brad Pitt, I kind of forget that's Brad Pitt in that movie. That whole boxing match he has.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of get to like, I mean, I think rock and roll, even though a lot of people see blasphemy, I like rock and roll more than Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, just because I feel like that was like his first stab at it, and some characters are just kind of there. They're not as likable as they are in Snatch. You know what I mean? There's some characters just like, well,
Exactly.
that guy's just. These two guys are just here to be presented an option at some point. They confront the main bad guy. They die, so these guys can find that. Where everybody in Snatch feels like they are there for their own reasons, not there just to move the story along. They're all there for a particular reason. Where in, like I said, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, even though some of the characters are pretty cool, some of them were just kind of there to, not for them. It sounds weird because, they're written, but they're not like they have their own control. They're written, but I mean, like, they feel like they were forced in there just for the sake of moving the movie along rather than having a real purpose in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just as I said, it's one of those ones like it's like I've enjoyed all his movies, but like the Snatch is the only one that like sticks out more than all the others do.
Yeah.
And even the Sherlock Holmes ones too. Like I like that first Sherlock Holmes one. I think is pretty good. I really enjoy it. The second one was like the one where it's kind of the classic action comedy sequel thing where hey, people seem to like the comedy you had in there. We'll jack that up a bunch. So I mean, like I said, like I enjoyed I think it's one of those movies. It's like a good movie. It's not really like a movie you have to go out of your way to see that second one, but. I mean, with that first Sherlock Holmes, you can kind of say I remember I think I saw it with my dad. It was almost it's kind of like a Holmes tradition to go see a movie that's got Sherlock
with
in
your
it,
name in it.
Yeah, it's like might as well let's go see the family now. It's a family movie here. So we go and watch Sherlock Holmes. I remember my dad, like the one thing he said, he's like, what I liked about this movie is like they took Sherlock Holmes and they just threw some action in it. It's like that's almost like what that like he needed for his stories because the older Sherlock Holmes are just more like drama investigations. Maybe a small action scene here or there. Somebody fires a gun or something, but he's like, I think that one where it just had more action adventure kind of ups it a bit. Probably somebody who really likes Sherlock Holmes would be like, yeah, but that makes it seem like it's dumber because what I liked about it was all the investigation and the science and the mystery and all that stuff. But
well, I think something about his movies now is before like going back to his first like let's say I haven't seen only movie of his I haven't seen. I think it's like Swept Away or whatever, which is that movie he directed starring Madonna, and that's the movie that everybody says sucks. It's romantic comedy. I haven't seen that one, but I heard it was bad. Even Wes, who is like kind of like us, he's very forgiving towards a lot of things. Says fuck that movie. So I'm like, okay, I'll take your word on it. Like Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, Rock and Roller, then Revolver, which is like a heist movie with this weird psychological twist to it. That one stands out probably the most among his other ones. I mean, I think Snatch is the best, but that one definitely sticks out the most individually. Revolver. I think that those four are like the last ones with his like real kind of like this is definitely one of his kind of movies. Because since then,
like sort of like the Guy like Ritchie flair. Like when you think of a Guy Ritchie movie, like that's kind of like you think of these British heist movies. They got these kind of quirky characters in it, and there's almost like comedy throughout it. Yet it's also an action picture too.
Yeah, Revolver is very serious. That one doesn't have a whole lot of comedy, but it still has some of that kind of Guy Ritchie flair to it. And I'll say that like the Sherlock movies and this one, Man from U.N.C.L.E, those ones are more of kind of like his new style. And what those will kind of have is I feel like they intentionally have little nods to his old movies, but not like here's like a Guy Ritchie character or here's Guy Ritchie writing. More than and more the thing like, oh, remember the slow mo thing from Snatch? We're gonna make a lot of references to that through Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Like
Yeah, well, because I will say,
plot.
like, from Sherlock Holmes, if for some reason somebody just didn't tell you that was a Guy Ritchie movie, I don't think I would have put that together, like that was Guy Ritchie. If I did not know if that director was hidden from there, I would have been like, huh, that's interesting. I mean, maybe once you say Guy Ritchie, you could notice like little teeny things here and there. But
Exactly.
they almost feel like, and I'm not bringing the movies down because they are really good movies, but that felt like the Lisa Sherlock Holmes ones. It's almost like he sort of, instead of just doing his genre of film that he kind of made, based off of Quentin Tarantino and other British films and so on. They almost feel like they're sort of like the Hollywood picture versions of like his kind of movies. They feel like they're a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more easier accessible. Like, don't give the guys such thick British accents, make it so Americans can understand it a lit's bit easier and so on. Put Robert Downey Jr. in there as a British guy.
Yeah. I think definitely in what you're gonna put, what you call it, in Man from U.N.C.L.E. I think, I'm not sure if this was an intentional thing. I mean, it's probably more coincidence than anything. But all his British gangster movies, the Russians are always hard to kill. It was just one of those constant themes that you'd have. Like, it's almost impossible to kill a Russian. They'd eventually die, but like, there's Boris the Blade. He gets he gets into a car crash. He gets stabbed. He's still alive. Then he gets shot like 12 times off screen before he dies. And then you have like the two Russian dudes who were tracking, like in Rock and Rolla, who were like trying to chase down Gerard Butler, and it's really hard to kill them too. So, and then this movie, one of the main characters is Russian, and I think they kind of have a little bit of that kind of joke because the way they played off the Henry Cavill character, who's playing the American, and Armie Hammer, who's playing the Russian. Like Armie Hammer, he's much more like the tough fighter, like. He's a lot more just like bold, just rush in there, knock the fuck out of some people. And then the Henry Cavill character, he's a lot more of like, he can fight, he can hold his own, but he's a lot more of the secret agent. Let's be suave, let's be chill about this whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And there are moments where
because I haven't seen it yet, but one thing looks like, I like how they're doing like a 60s, like a period piece, because I remember when Casino Royale first came out, that was the thing that I like when I first was announced. I thought they were doing like James Bond in 1950s. Like, I was like, dude, that's so badass. They're gonna do the fucking prequel to Dr. No. And then when the movie comes out, it's like, oh, it's just more of like a reboot. And I think that's the one thing. It's like a lot of times it's like I don't like to let things kind of pull a movie down, but I like Casino Royale a lot. But just that, I know it's like that weird thing. It's just like, I guess in my mind, I just pictured it as being a prequel. I mean, the movie even starts off, makes you almost feel like it is until you kind of get a little bit farther into it, then you start seeing cars. But, like, I just think the idea of, like, doing that 50s style, 007, this is him before he was Sean Connery thing, what he had to do and so on, is, like, a much cooler storyline than kind of just, like, oh, it's a reboot and without all the flair. And it's like, don't get me wrong, like, Casino Royale is an amazing movie, but just taking that sort of away, I don't know, it's like it's hard for me to kind of, like, erase that and just kind of accept the movie for what it is. I mean, like, and go, okay. Because even though I go, like, it's a great movie, but it could have been even better if they just would have went with, like, what it should have been. Which, what I like with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is, like, it's in the 60s. It's like, let's just make it, like, when the show took place. I think that's cool.
That is a cool thing about it. I mean, the movie, and it's pretty balanced out between kind of like, the suspenseful spy stuff as well as, like, the action. And this movie does have a good amount of comedy in it. It's not, like, enough to be an action comedy, but kind of like some Guy Ritchie type humor. Like, there's a part where Henry Cavill is being interrogated by an ex-Nazi, and he's getting shock treatment. And the Russian guy comes in and like saves him, and they strap the guy down. He's like, no, you don't gotta shock me. You don't gotta shock me. I'll tell you everything. And they like zap him for a sec. Like, all right, we'll be right back. We'll talk about this. And like, they're like, are we fine to leave him alone in this thing? Like, yeah, the thing has a glitch. It like stops working after every few minutes. So then they walk out of the room, and you see him in the window. They're talking like what they should do. Like, well, should we give him over to the feds? Because if we do, then like, he'll just get a reduced sentence. If he'll work for him, this and that. They're all narrowing it down. He's just saying this. Like, should we let him die? Like, well, we got to use it. He has information. As they're saying this, you see the thing came back on, and the guy's just shocking, and you literally see like smoke coming up, and the guy's at a point. It's to his back room, so it's not too violent, but he's actually on fire, and they're just like talking, So it still has some of that kind of like. It has like definitely. a stylized kind of humor. I'd say as far as newer movies go, it's a good one. Um, because it sounds like I was really kicking Guy Ritchie in the dick, and I think back on because I still like him. He's good, but it's like that. Nothing's been that snatch good, you know. But
Yeah,
this
and
is
that's what
still
I
a pretty
mean.
good one.
He's just one of those kind of, like, you see that with a lot of directors, and I don't like to call it, like, it's not like a one hit wonder, because it's not saying that the other ones are bad, but it's almost like they can't capture that lightning in a bottle that they got with one film. Where, there's directors, like Steven Spielberg is a perfect example of somebody who just is out there. You just like catch lightning with his fucking hands and just like put it in bottles and store it up for later. We all know he makes a couple of movies here and there that aren't up to par as others, but you got Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park and Jaws and fucking Saving Private Ryan and so on. You got this humongous list of these fantastic movies where these other directors, it's like they get like this one. Like, I'm trying to think of another director who's kind of that Guy Ritchie position where they have like one movie where you go, man, that movie is so fucking good, so amazing. Oh, here's a perfect
Soderbergh.
example. No, Soderbergh's
Soderbergh.
got he's a little bit more balanced, but no, the guy who did Fight Club.
Oh, David Fincher.
David Fincher's another perfect example where Fight Club is so freaking amazing. I think that's almost more due to Chet Palahniuk more than anything else. And you watch all other David Fincher's movies; they're all good and decent, but none of them are like amazing, like have to own, have to watch over multiple time pictures. They're all kind of like one of those ones like you should see them, but that's about kind of it.
I think that I mean I like Fincher, and like I'll be honest.
Well, I'm not saying his movies are
Yeah.
bad, but you know what I mean. Like, does he have another movie that's like Fight Club caliber?
Well, I guess think of how many directors, though. You also got to think of it at the same time. How many directors really have that whole? Because most directors, it's kind of like someone will go see a movie, and they don't really put together who made it. And I'm not saying that to be like a condescending dick. I think most people when they go see a movie, they don't know like, oh, this is by the writer and director of, you know. And the only ones that I think really everybody knows, and just because they throw it in their face and their signature is so distinctive, I think it's like, okay, Spielberg, Tarantino, and I'm just talking like people that are still directing today. I'm not even going like Stanley Kubrick or like anybody like that. I'm just talking people who are still making stuff today, like Tarantino,
George Lucas.
George. Well, not now, but yeah, George Lucas
And
definitely.
then now it's like, fuck all y'all.
I'm done. I'm all this retirement Disney money. I'm on that mouse cock, you know.
It's just like he just walks into a fucking X-wing and just flies into space, and you never see him again.
Fuck Earth. I'm done with Earth. I'm never coming back. I'm over with it. I'm just done.
He goes up, and then all of a sudden you're like, when do we get a fucking second moon? That's no moon. It's a space station.
That's what he did with the money. He's planning to blow up Earth for people talking shit on the
just
prequels.
like, fuck you. All right, and then just like, Jar Jar, push the button, damn it. Push the goddamn button.
With the pleasure, Mr. Lucas. You know?
It just blows up the Earth. Credits come fucking rolling down.
He puts his hand on Jar Jar's shoulder and is like, no one's there to judge you now, Jar Jar. No one's there to judge you now. It's like, Misa's never been happier. You know, like tears.
They won't call you Judge Binks anymore. Like, did people call me that? I don't know, but they probably did.
Probably, yeah. Well, we're getting off topic here, but anyway, I think that like, you don't got very many directors that have that like that everyone knows right off the bat. Like here's their particular this director, they make this particular kind of movie. So I think that when you get someone like Soderbergh or Fincher, even though they make or like even Guy Ritchie, I think they make good movies, but I think Guy Ritchie, his movies aren't movies that everyone kind of goes out to see in the first place. Now he's kind of gone a little bit more mainstream. So now it's just kind of like, okay, I'll go see, oh, this movie's fun. You know, same like Soderbergh and Fincher, like their movies are always something different. It's not like they strictly do like, it's not like they always strictly, because they're always doing a different genre or doing something else, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not saying like more like by people knowing them. I'm just talking about like this more even comes from more like people that are really into film and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm not saying like their movies are bad or anything, but it's just that they don't have that thing like a Stanley Kubrick even, who can just make these like just amazing movie after amazing movie after amazing movie. Like, because I'm trying to think of David Fincher's movies. Like I enjoyed mostly all the ones that I watched.
I will say that like probably is like some of the biggest directors we have right now is probably Soderbergh, Fincher, then Tarantino, Spielberg, and then probably I'm gonna also say what was the other one that was on the tip of my tongue?
Three
Wes
Kings guy.
Anderson. Oh yeah. David O. Russell. Then like someone else who like this is like somebody who does have that style. Like you can't confuse it with anything else. Like Wes Anderson or Spike Jones. You know,
Or
something
Paul
kind
Thomas Anderson.
of Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah, exactly. So those are the kind of people that I think usually can make a movie that really stands out. But a lot of times those movies aren't like your average like movie going public people. Just kind of like award movies or whatever. Some of them are, some of them aren't. You know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. It's just that sort of thing where I'm not talking about awards or different genres or anything like that. It's just making just those amazing movies like again and again and again and again. Where you're like, dude, I gotta watch that movie over and over and over again.
I think it
You know?
almost ends with to an extent, not entirely. I'm not saying this actually makes it better, but I think one of the things why we kind of know about it is the directors always kind of put themselves so much into it. Like someone like Tarantino or
Like Kevin Smith or Robert
Kev,
Rodriguez.
or like going back like yeah like Wes Anderson like that has so much of their signature and personality within that I guess that almost kind of builds up a bigger fan basis where someone like even though good movies like Fincher, Soderbergh, or David O. Russell, even though they all make good movies, it's one of those things like they're all so different. I guess it's kind of always hard to pinpoint a certain signature. Like maybe you can say, okay, that looks kind of like a Fincher shot, or that seems like something he would be interested. It's like their interests are so broad. They don't like because Kevin Smith usually centers down to comedy. It's not he's been doing different things lately, but it's always kind of like similar characters, similar comedy. Tarantino, not always crime, but always same type of writing, same kind of characters, same kind of musical choice. Wes
Always
Anderson.
a '70s kind of feel to it. Like you kind of can tell that you're watching a Tarantino movie without somebody even telling you that.
Yeah, Wes Anderson has that weird, quirky sense of humor with kind of like intentionally tacky looking sets. So it's like it's those little things that kind of like okay, that is. I think that's almost kind of like distinguishes like I'm not saying that like those other guys suck, but I think it's more the people that have more of a signature, which I think that signature is what kind of brings the same people always coming back because they like that one particular signature, so that's why they keep going back to it.
Yeah, and I'm just even thinking like John McTiernan. Like I just think like that guy. It's like he's just got like he doesn't have a ton of movies in his like roster, but like the movies that he has, he just got some of these legendary pictures like Die Hard and Predator. Well, and Last Action Hero if you consider that. Depends who you are. And Die Hard 3, and these movies are just these big,
Did he
massive
do
movies.
We Were Soldiers? Did he do that one?
He did the movie The 13th Warrior with Antonio.
Antonio.
I don't. Maybe he. Fuck. Who? I know the Mel Gibson one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Mel Gibson Vietnam movie.
Yeah, I have. I feel bad. I have that movie. And I can't think of like who directed it right now, but I have it up there in my laborious collection of movies from war.
I'm imagining your DVD collection almost kind of looking like a set, like a History Channel, like, right as you move in on some like British guy with like a monocle, like, today we are talking about Napoleon.
I literally could, if I just wheeled all my DVDs behind me and sat in front of it, I could literally look like I was like doing like a historical
You
interview from like.
you gotta get it. You gotta get like old fashioned, fancy looking like bookshelves, though. You know what I mean, like Victorian, like
Not like my kind of cheap Walmart ones. They're like that's good enough.
yeah, like make it look really classy. Get yourself a nice, fancy armchair.
And just sit there, just like at first you glance, you're like, oh, he must be having a bunch of. Well, that's not a bunch of books. That's a bunch of fucking DVDs behind him.
And then you just hang up that we have a Nintendo poster or the like sign behind it, like just totally out of place. Then like with a Last Action Hero poster as well.
I know that'd be the way to go. But okay, what we're talking about? Guy Ritchie, fucking Man
That
from
was a good
U.N.C.L.E.
movie. Yeah, like well, it also has some of the other stylized stuff to it, kind of like things like just kind of like the little humor. Like there's a part where you see a glimpse of it in the trailer. Like kind of some of the other humor it has is like there's a part where they're in a speedboat, they're trying to outrun somebody. Henry Cavill falls off the boat, swims over to shore and sees the Russian dude still like zooming around, just trying to avoid death. And then Henry Cavill just kind of sits back for a minute, and he crawls into this truck, and he sits in the truck for a minute, turns on the radio, puts on some nice, easygoing jazz. There's a picnic basket right there. He's like, oh, there's like brandy in there. There's a sandwich. Turns it up, and in the reflection of the window and within the rearview mirror, we see there's all this action going on, and he's just sitting there watching, while like eating the sandwich. So it's kind of like some of that kind of humor, which that all works. It's not too much of that, but just enough of it,
Does this movie kind of have a feel like this is almost like, sort of like, because I bet you Guy Ritchie would like to do a 007 movie at some point. Does this movie kind of feel like this is kind of like at least his first stab at doing a 007 movie?
Kind of. I mean, it's an American and it's a Russian, so... I mean,
it doesn't have to be British necessarily. I mean, Guy Ritchie's British, so that's close enough.
It's not so... I mean, I guess you could... It's not so, like... It's not really camp-based. It all seems very... Even though... in concept, the idea of like a Russian and American working together during the Cold War
60s,
seems very, very unlikely. It does seem fairly plausible, even though some of the action is kind of stylish. It doesn't feel very like like Dr. No-ish or Blofeld. It doesn't feel anything like that. It feels very kind of like plausible,
Well, like. I don't see how Dr. No doesn't seem too unplausible.
Well, I mean, I guess to the extent of, like, even though it's a good movie, I mean, you got stuff like he has, like, didn't he have, I don't remember, did Dr. No have, like, a robot hand or, like, a big ceramic arm or something like that? Then there's a part where Sean Connery and the girl kind of get on the beach, and she's, like, wearing, like, a bikini and has, like, a knife, like, on the belt and all that. This is a lot more of kind of, like, Mission Impossible-ish, more than, like, I'm going to say, like, Mission Impossible... Maybe more like Mission Impossible 1 set in like the 60s than like probably Mission Impossible 2 or something like that,
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean there.
I mean, there is I'm going to say has more action than that. Like there is some cool car chases and a little bit of like not like too over the top action, but a little bit over top,
Well, it's a movie. You got to put a little bit, because I always say
kind of stuff like,
if it's too realistic, then like what's the point of going to watch it?
Exactly. I mean, it's still stylized, but kind of like there's enough there. It's enough like, enough bending reality to make it still interesting and visually interesting. Like there's a part where this part's kind of in the trailer for a minute. There's a part where they're sneaking up to this one like soldier, and the Russian guy really slaps him hard in the side of the head in a weird way, and the guy just stands there like he's this is a special trick we learned. Fully, like, still standing up, but fully unconscious. Be like this for 20 minutes. Don't touch,
Awesome. Like, that's one of those ones I can't wait to go see that one, and Straight Outta Compton. It was just one of those ones I looked at the time, I was like, that's just when you start feeling like an old man. It's like, oh, I was playing too late, and too tired by that point. I gotta wait around, and all that good stuff.
Oh, this old timer just wants to see some NWA. That's all he wants to see.
But sweet, so good recommended movie there, and that's probably a good place to leave off at. Make sure to check out oldmanorange.com. Until then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And we will see you sometime else.
Later, folks.
Check out our website at oldmanorange.com for even more podcasts, cartoons, videos, music, and more. Send us an email at oldmanorangepodcast@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review us on iTunes, Podomatic, or any of the other fine sites we might be located on. If you want to help out even more, click on the Amazon or GameStop links on our webpage before you make any purchases there. It won't cost you a penny, but it sends us a little something our way. Thanks again, and tune in next week for more Old Man Orange Podcast.